That means it doesn't spread very fast. And the basal cells proliferate, can invade the dermis and hypodermis because I mentioned the location. They're slow growing and they don't often metastasize. They don't get huge and big and cause major problems normally. And normally cure rates are very high, 99% or better. The squamous cell carcinoma comes from the stratum spinosum cells, those cells that have the desmosomes connecting them. Most of the time you see these things on your scalp, in your ears, your lower lip, very common for squamous cell carcinomas. They will grow rapidly and metastasize if you don't get rid of them. But prognosis is normally very good with squamous cell carcinomas, especially if you get them early. They can be treated. This one, I went back to show the picture of where those are in the spinosum. This one, the melanocyte, is the most dangerous because, number one, it is highly metastatic. It grows very quickly and spreads very quickly. And these cancer cells are resistant to chemotherapy. They don't respond like epithelial cancers do. So they're extraordinarily dangerous. Now, the melanocyte, as you can see, is down here in the basal layer. We looked at this picture twice today. So students want to know about their moles and their freckles because you know enough now about skin tones and skin color to know what a mole or a freckle is, right? If I did a section of a mole and I looked at it under a microscope, what would I find there? What is that? Melanocytes, yeah. Just a big ball of melanocytes. And so students learn this, my freckles and my moles are melanocytes, and they go, you just told us that a big ball of melanocytes can be a melanoma, and that's dangerous. I got a mole right there, and I'm freaking out a little bit now in this A&P class. Help me. All right, so here you go. This is the general rule for looking at things on your skin. The ABCD rule for melanomas. Number one is if it's a cancerous melanoma, it is asymmetrical. All right? So talk to me about moles. They're round. Yeah, so the vast majority of these melanocyte accumulations on you are not dangerous. Just this nice round looking little mole. Now, when it starts to change, now we start to worry. Yeah? It's nice now, round little mole, nothing to worry about. Second observation is the border is irregular. What about moles? What's the border look like? It's smooth. Yeah, most of the time they're smooth. Okay, and that applies for freckles also, right? So you look at your freckle and it's asymmetrical and you go, and then you say, but that's okay because I can't feel that freckle. Its border is not irregular. There are no indentations on this thing. Okay, so it's asymmetrical, it has border. Put them together, now we've got problem growing, right? The mole that I have has a big finger-like thing growing off of it, and the top of it has ridges. Third is color. So it's a melanocyte structure. It's going to have color, right? Mostly brown to black color. But if you have a mole or a freckle and you see streaks of lighter tones or reds or oranges in it, danger. A nice, smooth, dark brown or black mole, no worry. But if the border goes asymmetrical, if the sides go asymmetrical and the border goes irregular, and you see some streaks in it, different colors, major problem. And then finally, the diameter is a key. If what is on you, this is a good general rule of thumb, if what is on you is larger than a pencil eraser, have somebody look at it who knows. So I've gone in to the PA, the dermatologist over in Alexandria, for a couple things, and they've got these little magnifying things that they can look at them, and they look at these little spots on you. And so if I get something on me and it's larger than the size of a pencil eraser, I'm going to have somebody look at it because a melanoma is just nothing to be toyed with. ABCD rule. Good. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, what about like birthmarks and stuff? Is that going to change the color?
Yeah, so those things have to be watched. Those birthmark things, because people who are born with major melanocyte distributions in birthmark things, that's what they are, do have a higher rate of skin cancer. So it's something that has to be watched. So the main thing for birthmark applies to this as well, which is changes. Watching for changes in patterns. So even if there are multiple colorations there, they've always been there. And it's probably not an issue unless things start to change. All right. So melanoma, we talked about that. Let's talk about burns and I'm done. So here's what I want you to take away from me. All of you will probably be in some kind of medical setting at some point in your life, somewhere. So I like for students to come away from the skin chapter with this. There are different levels of burns, okay, but if I see someone who's got burns on them, and I know how to tell a second from a third degree burn, how much of their body has to be impacted, what percentage of their body has to be impacted by that burn in order for it to be life-threatening. Can a sunburn be life-threatening? You bet it can. Okay? So general rules, we say 25% or more with a second degree, that's ones that cause blisters at second degrees, or 10% of the body, or less if you're talking about the face or the hands or the feet of a third degree burn. Okay, so I like for students to leave me with a very quick way of predicting how much of the body is covered by a particular burn. I noticed the burn patient came in, something was on fire and they stuck their arm in to help somebody. They have third degree burns from the tips of their fingers to their shoulder. Is this life-threatening? Yes, it is life-threatening. So how would you know that immediately? Because you know the rule of nines, and you know that this represents 9% of the body. And at 10, we got life-threatening. So you can very quickly predict. What about somebody with a severe sunburn on their chest and back? Is that life-threatening? It sure can be. All right. So I want to leave you with the rule of nines after we define the burns. So first degree burn is epidermal only, the redness. Second degree burn also damages dermis. And you can see blisters that appear. Most of us have had a sunburn where we had blisters on our skin. That's a second degree burn. A third degree burn damages the entire thickness of skin. And oftentimes it will include superficial fascia. That'd be hypodermis. It will include the areolar, the deep fascia, and muscle. A lot of times the burns include not only the thickness of skin, but also further. Normally, on initial burn, the pain is not severe because all the nerve endings get burned. And so you can't deliver any action potentials on those nerves with the nerve endings burned. But they will return. And the pain following the healing process is excruciatingly painful. So these appear gray or white, cherry red. No initial swelling even normally, or pain. That's what edema means, swelling, because you've also cauterized all the blood vessels. But there will be massive fluid loss, and that's really what's life-threatening about a third degree burn, is fluid loss because of the damaged tissue. All right, so here's how you predict it. This is the rule of nines. The face, 4.5%. Back of the head, 4.5%. Your head represents 9% of your body. But this really only applies in your predictive stuff. This really only applies if it's the back of the head, because you know if there's a third degree burn in this part of your body, that is by definition life-threatening. The arms are 4.5 on the front, 4.5 on the back. 9, 9, 9. 9, 9. 9, 9. 9, 9. You see why it's called the rule of nines? You can very quickly predict how much of the body is covered this way. So 18% here, so 9 and 9. Same thing on the back. So if, let's do it this way. Do I have this picture? Hang on. I do. So if 25% of the body has a second-degree burn, it is considered critical. So when I look at this picture here, so this guy, is laying on the beach at spring break. This happens all the time, y'all. I listen for it when I'm watching newscasts about spring break and college students because they're acting. The whole purpose appears to be an idiot. To find a way to be a moron. So they go and seek out ways to be morons. And they're drinking all this alcohol, and they're laying out on the beach, and the dude's got his shirt off all afternoon, and from here to here, he is just baked. And then you look down at his legs, from here down, completely baked. Is he in trouble? Yes. You bet. He is in trouble. And there's an ambulance right over there. And all the hospitals and all these beach towns will tell you about these kids. The number of these kids who come in who have to be treated as burn patients skyrocket during this time of year. So if this is burned and this is burned, is this critical? 25%. More than 25% is critical. All right, so learn the rule of nines. We say that if more than 10% is third degree, we call that critical. And arm. The front of your leg. Half of your chest. Half of your back. Life-threatening third degree burns. Okay. I will answer questions for you now. I will also be happy to answer questions for you on Friday. What is on your mind, young people? You have a test on Monday. Tell me what you're thinking. Are you going through the content? Is everybody going through this stuff? Yeah? You're studying this? How are you doing? Are you getting quiz questions right? Some of them? Do you understand why you're missing ones? You do? Can you look? I was telling a young lady this earlier today. If you miss a quiz question, there are only two things possible, right? Either your teacher put the wrong answer. That happens. I did that. The crural region is where?
Medial portion, inferior.
It's not peroneal, is it? No, it's distal to the knee. That's where the crural region is. So my bad. The other option is you didn't learn it, right? Because I don't ask you questions that I don't teach you. So whatever quiz question you have, you should be able to go to your notes and get the answer. If the answers to the questions that you're working on are not in your notes, guess what? There's something wrong with your notes. So as you're studying for the exam, make your notes on the slides. When I write test questions, y'all, I look at these pictures and I think to myself, what did I tell them? And that's how I write the questions. So that's how you should study. Look at the pictures and learn what you have been told about those images. I'm rambling. What else? Tell me what's on your mind. Yes? Yeah, so this test section covers several chapters in your book. So a couple students have asked this question. The Merriam chapters have great practice questions in them. I'm going to pull some of them for your first test. I'm not trying to hide it. There are great practice questions in there. The Merriam website that I asked you guys to get be a part of. Here's the problem. The chapters that I've covered don't cover everything. I didn't cover everything. And in some of them I covered more in certain sections. So you're only going to be able to use your book. Skin's an exception, because I covered almost everything in the skin chapter. But your book is going to be a place where you go to read about content we've covered in class when you want to see somebody else's opinion. So it should supplement your study. Your main focus should be on the content of the class. If you want to read the book, don't read sections of your book that we haven't talked about. For example, in the introductory chapters, whenever I talked about transcription and translation, there's a whole section in there about ATP synthesis. Now, I told you this. I'm not covering that in the intro section because you won't have no context for this. So after I teach you muscle contraction and its need for ATP, then we'll go back to the intro chapter and I'll teach you ATP synthesis. So make sure you use your time wisely. As you're reading, don't read sections that we haven't covered. Read the sections of your book that we've covered, and that'll help you. Take test questions on the sections we've covered, and that'll help you. But everybody has limited numbers of hours in each day. So use your time wisely, study the content that I have presented to you, and use your book as a supplement for that. That's a great question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on the practice test, like, do you have, like, examples, like, okay, about the tissues, like the epithelial tissue, do you have, like, examples of how you would word them on the test?
That's what those test questions are. The quiz questions you have on there are old test questions that I have put on exams in years past. And sometimes they show up on current exams. I try every way possible to reward you for learning anatomy and physiology. And taking those quizzes is one way of doing it. Any other questions? Yes, sir, Rodney. That's a great question. We can talk some more about that on Friday. The test is not made out yet. So, Rodney likes more questions than less. Yes? So, we'll talk about that on Friday. I'll have it made out by then, and I'll give you a number. Yes?
Is there a review going to be posted on the portal?
The review.
Yeah.
Friday's class period?
Yeah.
We can. I hadn't planned on doing that. You won't be here. Okay, good question. I will record it.
All right. Thank you.
Great question. Because some of you have to travel, huh? It'll be recorded. I'm glad you said something. Okay. 67 people in this class. I don't know how to tell you, other than to tell you, I'm going to ask you to know the material. So if you don't work at this, you're not going to do well. Please come to me with questions, because I cannot tell you what it would do for my heart to see the class average in the 80s. That would just make me feel like I have been successful. I am an okay teacher when my students are learning and doing well. But I have an obligation, you see, a professional ethical obligation to tell PTA people and the nursing people that you know something. And the only way I can measure that is with examination. So study hard and come and do well on your exams. Help me, Rodney. What should I say? Study hard, do well. And don't let this first one get away from you. It's hard to dig out of a hole. I'm trying to be encouraging. Yes.
One more question.
One more question.
Regions of the abdominal area, are we going to have to know what they consist of?
Okay, it's a good question. So you're talking about the umbilical and the epigastric and hypogastric and iliac regions, right? Okay. So those questions will be in relation to each other. So one is superior to the other, or one is medial or lateral to the other. I will not get nitpicky with organs. That's your question, right? What lobe of the liver is in the epigastric region, right? Okay, so I'm not going to do that. That's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
On the quiz, it asks about the diaphragm, if it's epigastric or umbilical, and they're like both. I was confused about that.
So the lateral portions of the diaphragm extend further down? Yeah.
So,
So I need to look at the question again with you to see exactly what you're talking about.
I think it was asking like which one the diaphragm is located in.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a close check.
Which one is
Here, I got pictures of it.
Oh, good, let's have it out loud.
If I can find it. The diaphragm is closest to what region?
Okay.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, it's the epigastric, the umbilical pelvis, and then the hypogastric.
Okay, so what's the right answer then? Epigastric, yeah. So look at it in the picture carefully. So where is epigastric in relationship to umbilical? It's epigastric is superior to umbilical, right? Yeah. So,
Oh, I got it right in
okay. You guessed and got it right?
No, I actually looked at the picture in the book.
Well, that's the way you should do it. You could have looked at the picture on the slide presentation, right?
Yeah.
It's the same picture. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What does it mean, dorsal?
Dorsal. Okay, class.
Back.
What's another anatomy word for dorsal? Posterior. Yeah. What is that? The liver is ventral to the dorsal body cavity that contains the spinal cord, right? I think that's what the question was asked. Yeah. All right.